She is one of the biggest embarrassments in all of the decades I have covered this state, Brian, to this state, to the political system. And trust me, people who know her in politics agree with every word that I'm saying.
Can you give people a little background on Michelle Fiore, because she has been a very controversial figure for a very long time?
Well, we don't have enough time to talk about all of the terrible stories that have been written about her and all of her actions. She burst onto the scene as this very conservative assemblyman probably about 15 years ago now, Brian, and well before the MAGA movement and before she became a symbol of the MAGA movement. But she has done all kinds of bad stuff in her professional and political life. I uncovered at one point that she had $1 million in tax liens against her businesses. Her business was eventually shuttered by the state. It was a healthcare business. She has used campaign funds to pay her daughter long before she was indicted and then convicted on somewhat similar charges of using campaign funds or using funds that were dedicated for one purpose for another purpose. And that was a real obscenity she was convicted on, because it was about a police memorial. You had a lot of people testify that they were misled, including the governor, who was a Republican, I should remind your viewers, who used the word victim to describe how he felt about giving money for a police memorial, a memorial to a guy who had been killed. But she was elected by her colleagues in the assembly as majority leader, then had to immediately step down because of the tax liens. She has said that, and she said all kinds of other nutty stuff like cancer is a fungus and you can get rid of cancer by putting a PICC line in and shooting sodium bicarbonate through it. She is obsessed with guns. She sends out Christmas cards with an entire family festooned with guns, including kids. She is vulgar. She has said all kinds of stuff, including yesterday to a reporter from Channel 8 who reported on the story. She's a very nasty person who puts on this fake front of being someone who cares about the people because she has spaghetti dinners in the neighborhood to try to get campaign support. She is one of the biggest embarrassments in all of the decades I have covered this state, Brian, to this state, to the political system. And trust me, people who know her in politics agree with every word that I'm saying, including and maybe even especially members of her own party.
Agree. And John, I know that you're not surprised by this pardon. I'm also not surprised by it. Are you surprised that there was like zero explanation, nothing from the Trump administration, no statement, nothing?
I was surprised because usually when they do these pardons or commutations, there's some kind of fig leaf put out there to try to, cover why they're doing the pardon. There was nothing like that. Now, you have MAGA people like Roger Stone who have been tweeting for a while saying that she is a victim of the deep state and lawfare to try to get Trump pardoned, but no evidence has ever been provided. And by the way, people just need to read what happened at the trial. And then she asked for a new trial, and the judge wrote a long order specifying why she does not deserve a new trial. So there is no justification for this pardon. I'm not surprised, I guess, that even Trump couldn't come up with one if he even knows why he pardoned her.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit about our attorney general, because my understanding, the way the laws are written, and correct me if I'm wrong, our attorney general can go after her, for lack of a better term, where charges could be filed where Donald Trump could not, the pardon would not affect it at all. Do you feel like Aaron Ford will do that? And do you think that will happen? And eventually maybe she will have to pay the price for what she did?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that Ford put out a tweet yesterday talking about how outrageous this pardon was. And I kind of facetiously responded to that tweet by saying, if only there was someone in a position who could bring state charges against her. Now, there may be statute of limitations issues with bringing charges, but there certainly are state statutes involving fraud, which essentially is what she was convicted of. Wire fraud is what she was convicted of. There are state fraud statutes. There may be others that apply, but will Ford do anything? You know, he's running for governor. Maybe he's not trying to get the MAGA base even more against him than it already will be. Although I think that really doesn't matter that much. If there's a case, will he bring one? I hope so, but I don't know if he can make a case.
Yeah, I hope so as well. That's a good point. So, John, what's even more concerning now is that my understanding, based on her statement, she's going to be back as a judge for Nye County. She said as early as Monday. Do you have any information on that?
So I saw that, and I had one of my reporters call the Judicial Discipline Commission, which has suspended her. She is currently suspended from being on the bench. Now, maybe she knows that suspension has been lifted. We couldn't get a comment from them, but they have a lot of power over judges too. Just because she wasn't convicted, just because she was pardoned by Trump, doesn't mean she wasn't still convicted of a crime at some point, and that just what she did in misleading these people, what she was convicted of, may be enough for the JDC, the Judicial Discipline Commission, to keep that suspension going. But it's either the Judicial Discipline Commission or Ford. I don't know of any other remedy that exists to keep her off the bench. By the way, that's just another ridiculous thing, Brian, that your listeners should know about, which is that she was appointed by the Nye County Commission to be a justice of the peace in Pahrump after she stepped down from being mayor pro tem at the city council because she was accused of racism by another city council member. And so she essentially fled Las Vegas to this place outside of Las Vegas, where they actually had the temerity to appoint somebody who's not even close to a lawyer, who flouts the law, as we've seen through her career, and including now as a justice of the peace. I mean, people listening to this must think that we are the most backwater joke of the state in the entire country.
Sometimes we are, John. I mean, some of my listeners, when they were considering appointing her, told me to go out there for public comment, which I did. I just played that video, and I just went down a laundry list of the despicable things she has said and she has done just in the last 5 years. And you know what they did? They read a letter from Donald Trump that, said, hey, you need to appoint her. You know, Donald Trump endorsed her, and that's why they did it. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you're just joining us, John Ralston from the Nevada Independent, we're talking about the Michelle Fiore pardon that took place yesterday. So let's talk about Joe Lombardo, I'm going to call him MAGA governor now. I've just had it being nice when it comes to Joe Lombardo, but he called himself a victim, as you stated, in this case. Okay, Joe Lombardo was a victim. Do you think Joe Lombardo would make a statement and say, hey, I disagree with the pardon, I disagree with what Donald Trump has done? But yet Joe Lombardo last week, as you know, at a dinner was criticizing peaceful protesters who were protesting Donald Trump, and he was calling them, paid actors, and they don't really care about the issues. Despicable statements with no proof to back it up. But now he's a victim from Michelle Fiore. He said it himself under oath. Do you think he would make a public statement and say, I don't agree with this pardon? No, of course not, John.
So here's what I think about that. I don't think it's quite fair of you to call him a MAGA governor. However, I understand why you were inclined to do so. And those remarks he made at the Lincoln Day dinner were just insane and offensive. And it goes to one of my theories of politics, going all the way back to Sharon Angle, the nutty candidate who ran against Harry Reid, who made all kinds of crazy statements when she went into comfortable audiences or interviewers, and to try to appeal to the base or that audience. That's what Lombardo was doing, and I think he just got careless. And I think he said things that maybe that represents what he really thinks, that they were paid protesters or uttering an FU to people who troll him, as he said it. But there are times when he has had a chance, in my opinion, to make a public statement about something really outrageous that either Trump has done or someone like Fiore has done that he has not done. Now, I understand the considerations politically here, Brian. He's running for re-election. He wants to keep that base intact while trying to appeal to moderates. So he'll write a letter saying he protests the Medicaid cuts, or he'll write a letter saying don't put a tariff on lithium. These are just kind of nods to the other side. But I don't think that Lombardo can dance between these raindrops forever. I don't believe he's a MAGA guy, by the way. I really don't. You may recall during the debate with Sisolak that I moderated in 22, I asked him directly, do you think Donald Trump is a great president? And he said, I think he's been a sound president. I wouldn't use that word. And then by the end of the day, after Trump went ballistic and threatened to pull his endorsement, Lombardo was out saying he was a great president. And then the next day or two later, he appeared on a stage with him and called him the greatest president. So Lombardo was trying to have it both ways on this, and I don't think he can do it forever. If he can, it's going to be the most miraculous dancing between the raindrops that you and I have ever seen.
Yeah. So, John, I agree with everything you just said. So behind closed doors, I don't think Joe Lombardo likes Donald Trump. Okay. But like many others in the Republican Party today, he's afraid to criticize Donald Trump in fear that he can lose power and maybe not remain the governor. But in that speech he made a week or two ago at that dinner, he sounded like Donald Trump. Now, that might not be the real Joe Lombardo. You're right. He's trying to appease the base. I agree with everything you said. Just the reason why I call him MAGA Joe Lombardo now is because he puts on an act and he takes a page from the Donald Trump playbook. But I agree with everything you just said. I think behind closed doors, Joe Lombardo does not like Donald Trump, but he's afraid to say it publicly. Isn't it interesting, John, that today George Santos was sentenced to 7 years? Now, I don't know if George Santos is going to get a pardon, but a lot of people, at least in Nevada, I think, would say, how is it that George Santos gets sentenced to 7 years, but yet Michelle Fiore will probably never spend 1 day behind bars? Like, what do you say to people like that?
Yeah, I mean, George Santos was a fraud, right? He faked his resume. He did all this stuff that is absolutely outrageous, and he's going to be in prison for 7 years or so unless he gets a pardon. Michelle Fiore was convicted of defrauding people who she said she was soliciting money for a police memorial, a fallen cop, something that really should offend Joe Lombardo, by the way, and I think he probably is. And she gets pardoned by the president? Again, the specifics of this are outrageous, but let's face it, Brian, and I think you'll agree with me. This is emblematic of the Trump administration. He ran as being the tough guy, and we're going to enforce the laws, and they are completely flouting the rule of law here with literally no explanation for why he's pardoning her for something that seemed clear from the testimony and the evidence was an open and shut case.
Yeah. So, John, one more question for you, and I guess it's more of a loaded question just nationally. What's going on in this country right now? You've been doing this for a long time, and you do it very well. Did you ever think in our lifetime that people in this country, whether they're undocumented or not, that they would not have due process, that we'd be sending people to El Salvador prisons, that there'd be 10% tariffs to go around everywhere? What's going on in Ukraine right now, calling our allies and calling Zelensky a dictator and coddling to Vladimir Putin. President Xi won't even pick up the phone and talk to Donald Trump. Our economy is obviously headed in the wrong direction. Did you ever think that we'd be living in a country in our lifetime where all this stuff would be happening?
Oh, of course not. Although I have to tell you that we've never had anyone like Trump in the Oval Office, a pathological liar. And I don't say that blithely. It's easily provable. Probably while we are talking, he's telling another lie about something to some reporter, Brian. But I'll tell you the truth, and I've told a lot of my friends this. After he was elected in 2024, I wasn't that surprised, but I said to myself, you know what? There's a little bit of a stretch, but how bad can it be? I'm going to be zen. We're in America. Let's go on. We have to deal with this. We have to cover him. We have to cover the consequences for Nevada. I have to tell you, it's been exponentially worse than I thought it was going to be, and it keeps getting worse all the time. And this so-called Steve Bannon theory of flooding the zone with all kinds of nonsense every day to distract people like you and me from things, I think that works to some extent, but that is part of the reason I decided to write the column that was published this morning, is we can't let stories die. We can't let this kind of stuff be forgotten. It's okay not to be shocked by it. It's okay to hope for the best, but we can't let stuff like this go. People in our business, journalism has to stand. If the courts aren't going to hold up, and I hope they do, I mean, they arrested Kash Patel, who
Yeah.
unfortunately is in Nevada and had a judge arrested today. If the courts aren't going to hold up, journalism is the last bulwark. And we can't let this stuff just be normalized, to use the word of the day.
Yeah, I agree, John. And that's why we need such great journalists like yourself and what you guys do at the Nevada Independent. And you guys rely on the good people all over the country to make donations. So I want you to give that information out, because what you guys do is so important, and you guys do such a great job. You have some great journalists. So how can people get involved with the Nevada Independent and support what you guys do?
I really appreciate everything you've said, and you always do, Brian. I'm really proud of the staff at the Nevada Independent, who are young, aggressive reporters just trying to do the best they can. We're a nonprofit. We're doing pretty well, but we can. I want to hire more reporters. I want to do more. So go to the Nevada.com and NevadaIndependent.com. There's a big support our work button there. Just give us $5 a month if you can. Whatever you can do, we appreciate it.